So this does come down to, straight up rich dad, poor dad, the four quadrants, cash flow quadrants. So most of us, we're employees before we got into real estate. So we were trading time for money, albeit not great money. We got into real estate and it's like your time equals like more money. Like, it's like, holy cow, I went from being a teacher making 40,000 to now I can make 100 or 150,000. We kind of ignore the fact that it takes 7 days a week to do it. So that's part of the problem, but really we want to operate over on the right side. So for Real Estate B School, I'm teaching agents to become team builders, right? So they can get leverage through systems and technology and that sort of thing. So you can get some leverage having other people help you make money, but the rev share falls square in the B, right? So we get, referral income on all of these sales that are happening and providing value along the way. Here's the thing that you have to deal with no matter what, even if you decide never to do agent attraction. This was the path that I was on pre-eXp. So I went to Wealth Mastery with Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins told me that true financial freedom, achieving true financial freedom is spending less than you make, investing the difference until you get a critical mass of investment capital where you can live off the interest. So a simple way of saying that is save a pile of cash so you can live off of whatever interest. And you can do it through investment properties, and it's not the only way, but that was the path that I was going down. So I was just saving money. We were living a good life and still giving, but I was just saving money. My number was 7.2 million. Once I got to 7.2 million at 5%, it would throw off $30,000 a month. That was my freedom number. You have to know what your freedom number is, regardless of whether you do agent attraction, because at some point you're going to want to opt out of showing homes on evenings and, all the stupid stuff we do as real estate agents. So the reality is that it's way easier to produce the residual income on the left side without having to save the money on the right side. That's the ninth wonder of the world that is agent attraction. And once you understand that, I think it will motivate you to take action. So this is the math, whether you like it or not, and it has nothing to do with agent attraction. If your undone number is 7.2 million, that's mine, and I had saved, let's say 2.4 million liquid, the gap is 4.8 million. Let's say I was saving 10,000 a month. I was still 40 years away from having that pile of money. And I'm a saver. I'm saving $20,000 a month, and I wasn't getting to my number quick enough. So that's just math. Whether anyone likes it or not, you have to face it at some point. And then when you look at a few conservative examples around agent attraction, this is, on the left side, I call it a 5x5. It's you invite 5 that invite 5. And you can make different assumptions on numbers, but that left example is you bringing 5 people in and then helping them bring some friends in. So the left side example is you inviting 5, they invite 5, an organization of 30 agents. And it probably is higher than the typical agent. They're at 67,000 GCI. So you could argue that that's maybe an aggressive assumption, but either way, the math works out to about $5,000 a month. That number right there is the equivalent of you saving $1.2 million. So when I think about that, what's easier to do? Bring 5 people to eXp or save $1.2 million? It is so drastically easier. I have saved multiple millions of dollars, and I don't say that from an ego standpoint, but guys, the amount of work I did to do it was painful. The amount of risk I took on to do it, in the 100,000 plus a month of overhead in my real estate team. And even the coaching business I had, it's just a bunch of moving parts. So I figured out a way to make money and save a lot of it, but it was so freaking hard, guys. I don't even want to go back and tell you how hard it was. So you just have to trust me that this is the easiest way to do it. And if you can see yourself bringing in 5 and supporting them to bring in 5, then you could see yourself bringing in 10 and using that same ratio. That's the middle that has you at about 10,000 a month. And even if it's exaggerated, it's 7 or 8, that's like over $2 million of net worth saved. And that's straight Tony Robbins, like no funny math. You can't argue with it. It's a problem whether or not you do agent attraction or not. And then the cool thing about the second to the third happens without you doing anything. You're going to say like, holy cow, there are agents on my third level. I don't even know these people. And then you're going to have 110 people in your organization, and you'll be, 12 to 15,000 a month, which is saving over $3 million. So if you look at your financial, hopefully you guys are tracking your net worth. If you look at your net worth now, and your liquid net worth is everything you could turn into cash in less than 7 days. If it's not over $1 million, so it doesn't include your house or investment real estate, but if it's not over $1 million, then you don't really have a sense of what it takes to get to $1 million liquid net worth. You just have to trust me that it's going to be way easier bringing 5 agents to eXp than saving $1 million. It's just super hard to save $1 million. It's not impossible. And I'm not saying if you're listening to this, you can't do it. But if you haven't done it already, then I'd double down on agent attraction before I figured out how can I sell more homes and, go down some other path and save a whole bunch of money. So when I start to understand these numbers and how like, holy cow, I'm averaging about a $15 to $16 million net worth now through agent attraction, 25, 26 months in. Yes, I had a bunch of sweat equity put into the coaching company, but I did not have anywhere near that amount of liquid net worth. So you have to understand this is the math that once you understand it, and then you can just look at, it may take you 10 times as long to do what I did. And for some of you, it would still be worth it. Right. So it took me 2 years to make $1 million at eXp. I'll do hopefully, $1 million in the next 12 months. So it may take you 15 to 20 years to build something like this, and it's still worth it. So look at my front level is the 4 that turned into 8, and then 8, and then 10 and 20. So my first 4 months, I got to 10 people that joined me. And then all the seeds that I planted turned into 20 and 25. So like I told a lot of people, probably told I made 150 calls maybe to bring 25 people in. And that's about the ratio. You'll have 20 to 30% of people that you call, that you approach properly. You get them to, you don't say, sorry for calling when they say they know about eXp. You got to push through some things, but the conversion rates are really, really high. So that's another thing. You're only going to not do agent attraction if you don't do agent attraction. And I'm really confident about that. And, if you look at the rev share, the 992 and the 6133 and the 11215, that line down there, my month 5 and 6, my organization was at 150 and 222, but it takes agents some time to sell some homes. So in my month 7 and my month 8, where I made 26,000 and 30,000, those were from those first 6 months of effort. So if all you did was take my first 6 months, you took a screenshot of this and say, okay, my goal in the next 3 years is to get to where Lars got in 6 months. And I believe the math because it's actual math. You'll be at a $20,000 to $25,000 monthly residual income. I'm telling you, it will probably take you longer to do it, but you don't have to put 7.5 years of running a coaching company, spending millions of dollars on crap to convince agents to do what I want them to do to come into my world at Real Estate B School. You guys just have to make a list of 100 to 200 agents and actually do the work. And we've got scripts and all that stuff I can give you guys. But the mindset to me is the net worth equivalent. There's nothing I've seen like it. Just think about like acquiring a rental property in your market. What would it cash flow? Like if you're lucky, it would cash flow. And you bring one agent to eXp and if they're a capper, they'll cash flow at $250 a month. Mm-hmm. And if they
that's an interesting thing, Lars, because I was meeting with an agent here locally on Friday, and we were talking about that. He has 72 doors. All are pretty much long-term holds. There's a couple that were short-term, but he doesn't do that anymore. And, he closed on 3 properties in one day, and the total cash flow of those 3 was $450 a month. And he brought his 11-year-old son with because he teaches his children a lot about investing in real estate and whatnot. And he said, when my 11-year-old son is unimpressed with the cash flow amount, that is not good, and he was kind of making a joke, but for all of the work that they did, and, yes, he didn't use his money because after 72 properties, he's pulling money out, he's refinancing, selling without selling, right? And taking that cash. And yet they fixed up the property in order to rent it out, all the work they had to do to get it prepared and then rented. For 3 properties to make $450 a month. Now, he even said at 72 doors, he has, I think, 6 children. It doesn't pay their bills. That is not a passive income that actually pays their bills. It makes them money and they reinvest it. And over time, is he building wealth? Of course, as these properties are paid off. But from a perspective of living on that money day in and day out, it doesn't actually cut it. And so people don't really realize when you're looking at what people are doing, it's a huge investment of time and money for a very small amount of reward in the meantime. And so I think that when we look at this and we go, well, we could go acquire 72 doors. By the way, that's taken him well over 10 years to do. Or we could focus on this and just do what Lars did. Or I say the exact same thing. You don't have to be someone that is attracting agents full-time like Lars, myself, and with our backgrounds. And yet, how many of you are planning to retire in, 5 years or 10 years? Probably not many of you. And so why would we not be doing this work when we know, and we've got so many people that have gone before us and we can see these numbers and we know that this could be our reality too. We don't have to act as if we're going to get rich fast on this, but if we do the work, we will build a lot of wealth because it's just proven time and time again by a lot of people. So I love that. Sometimes we have a different perspective. We're looking at what other people are doing and we're assuming what they're actually making. I think that's a very dangerous thing. We can just look at our opportunity and realize we could probably get in the same place that they are and do a lot less work with a lot less risk. And do it in a way that we really are proud of, because you started this call out, Lars, talking about, this is a phenomenal opportunity, but it truly is, if you can wrap your brain around it, the only true success through others company that exists. Mm-hmm. I mean, truly, we are not taking money from the agents that we're helping. There is no detriment from them, financially speaking, and we can really, really succeed together in a way that we cannot do that in other companies. And so I think if we can get our mind around the reality of what this is and how it impacts ourselves, but other people too, becomes a lot easier to have those conversations. So let's talk about some of those conversations, Lars. Do you have any of the top, okay, so we all know we have to reach out to 200 agents. We got to create our list and we have to reach out. What are some of the things that you tell people in your organization to do? What is the most successful when people have these lists and they need to make these calls?
Let me touch on one thing that you just touched on, so I don't forget it. The video I share, or the talk that I was most inspired by, I've been to, I think, most every one of the Rev Share, the Agent Attraction, Brent Cove events, was a talk that Shireen Duncan did in Build 2021. So she came on stage. I didn't know who she was, but it was the conference was a bunch of the bigger organizations presenting. And I think there's this disconnect where people check out and it's like, oh, well, Rich did it, he got in early, or Brent did it, he's Brent, or whatever. Gene Frederick came in at 1,000 agents, and Shireen Duncan came on stage, and she's from Hawaii. She had this like flower thing on her hair, and she apologized for building differently than everybody else. And she only brought 15 people, 15 FLQAs. Her organization was 571. So you can apply whatever factor you want, 600 or 700, but do the math on that. It's $25,000 to $35,000 a month of residual income. And it took her 4 years to do it. I promise you, the first 2 years, she probably only made 30 grand, but it builds on itself. It builds slow, then quick. And all she did was decide to be a really phenomenal co-broke agent. So she just took this mindset, like, I'm going to make the experience of doing a deal with me so awesome that I'm naturally going to attract people to want to be closer to me. And she only had 15 FLQAs, and it grew out at, a 30 plus X multiple, which is possible. Not everyone grows at that kind of multiple. I'm a little over 30 times. but it's a mindset like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it part of the conversation. I'm just not going to have fear around it. Some that I'm naturally going to attract people to want to be closer to me. And she only had 15 FLQAs and it grew out at, a 30 plus X multiple, which is possible. Not everyone grows at that kind of multiple. I'm a little over 30 times. But it's a mindset like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it part of the conversation. I'm just not going to have fear around it. So if you haven't seen that, it's SHERINE, Duncan, DUNCAN. I have sent that to like probably 100 people that as they come into our organization, I have them watch it so they can believe that they can do it themselves.
I love it. And so Bill, thank you. Bill found it and posted the YouTube in the chat. So everybody should grab that right now, save it somewhere so you can go watch it. I agree with this. I mean, Elizabeth Riley is the example of this. And she and I had a great conversation at eXpCon. And, for somebody who's been an icon agent for 8 or 9 years with multiple children, having 11,000 people in their organization, it's the time that has helped the multiplication. But what she did to get there was be an amazing co-broke agent. And, every time she had a transaction, when you're an icon agent, you're doing quite a few transactions, right? Every single time you do a transaction, you be the best version of yourself and you ask people how business is going and you strike up the conversation. To your point, Lars, you said there's a pretty good conversion rate if you're willing to make the calls. 30% of those people, 25% of those people are thinking about a change, loved working with you and are open to the conversation. You're building up to those 15 FLQAs within a few years period of time, at least. And so I want to touch on that quick, Lars. So you mentioned about there's a pretty good conversion rate. It's interesting that you say that because when I joined a year ago, I started recruiting really probably more about this time, maybe November, December last year. I just started to reach out to people and it was all cold calling. Yes, I had some previous relationships because I had done something with them in the past, whether it was coaching or maybe I talked to them about a different opportunity. I'd been in the space obviously for some time. And I was expecting, because I've recruited for a lot of years, that there were going to be a lot of no's before I'd get one yes. I just mentally prepared myself for that because that's typically the case with agent attraction, or at least it was the case for me in a lot of my other roles. And I told people this and I said, you are going to think I'm blowing smoke, but I'm not kidding you. At least 1 and 2 people, like every other person I talk to, says one of 2 things to me. Wow, Carrie, I really want to know why you moved to eXp. I've thought about this for a long time. I just didn't know somebody that I trusted enough to ask why and what it was really about. Or you can't believe how many people said to me, I actually signed up for eXp and then I chickened out. I was like, what? It blew my mind because I had this limiting belief that no one was interested in eXp because I hadn't been interested in eXp. Okay, well, one of the most dangerous things that you can do, and I do this all the time, so that's why I'm sharing it with you, is think that other people think the same as you. They don't. So here I was thinking nobody is going to want to talk to me about eXp. Nobody's thinking about this company because I haven't been the last 10 years. And so I have to go and really sell people on this. And all of a sudden people were like, oh yeah, I've already thought about that. I've already talked to people. I even signed up and chickened out. I want to talk to you now because I've known you for a long time and I have a trust factor with you, or I like you, or whatever the case may be. So let's have a conversation about it. And it was a lot easier from that perspective than I had ever anticipated. That doesn't mean that everybody moves right now because you have to plant seeds because people's timing is their timing, not yours. Right, Lars? But what are you finding in regards to that? Is that something similar in your experience? I think that it's nice to mentally prepare people for this because we might be setting ourselves up for a story in our mind that isn't even true.
Yeah, and it definitely depends on the quality of your list. So we have folks, and I can give you guys all the templates that we use. So I'll drop a link to the Google Drive folder with 6 or 7 documents in it.
Yes,
but
please,
we have folks rank their list by like ABC relationship and ABC influence. So and relationship trumps influence. So if you don't go on HGTV and be like, man, I bet you Grant Cardone has a license, and then he's like a Z relationship. You don't know the guy. So you're going to call all of your A relationships first. But with A relationship agents, the conversion rate could be 20 to 50% with proper follow-up. And I think that you're just going to fail in the beginning. You're just going to call through your whole list and you're going to mess it up and you're going to sound stupid. And my palms sweat when I first made my calls, and and I'm like, I had been super successful in a bunch of things, but this was still a new thing for me. It was back into like personal prospecting, which I hadn't done in years. And so you're going to suck at it, and you're going to say the wrong things, and you're going to be nervous, and your voice is going to crack, and all of that's totally okay. The reason you're doing it is a large percentage. I don't know what the percentage is, and if there's even a study on it, but agents aren't happy with their current broker. Their current broker is generally not helping them set themselves up for success in real estate sales or helping them build an exit strategy. So just having the confidence that what you can offer somebody, it's just different than you have right now. It doesn't mean that you don't have to handle the objections, because the good thing is there's only like 4 or 5 objections that even exist at this point, right? If that, so you'll fail through those, and you'll realize, okay, I've got to be able to say that a little bit better. But follow a script and just be enthusiastic, and you're only selling the next thing. So I'm not going to call Steve and be like, Steve, what's going on, man? Like, have you think about, join eXp with me? You're not asking for that. You're saying, I'm sure you've heard of eXp. Obviously you're still at Keller Williams, so you've said no to it. I've been with the company for 18 months, and I've got to tell you, if you haven't studied it recently, it's worth your time. I'm not asking you to come over, but I'm asking you to spend a little bit of time looking at it. Would you do that with me? It's like, I like Steve. He seems like a good enough guy, like he's telling me that something's different, and it's, so something like that, but have it written out, whatever feels comfortable. I'll share with you guys what my personal invite script was. I would just ask for a little bit of their time, and then I would come right out of the gate. Like, I have been stiff arming eXp this is when I first came over. I've been stiff arming eXp for many years. I finally, someone I respect slowed me down long enough to look at it, and I can't find anything wrong with it. And at this point, I've gotten away, honestly, from personal prospecting because I'm busy helping others build. But I would say, Rich, you're on a short list of people that I respect, and I'd feel horrible if I didn't bring this to you. Knowing what I know now about eXp and how it's different from all the other brokerages out there, I'd feel really bad if I didn't ask you to slow down and study this thing with me. So here's my ask. I just want some feedback. Let's spend a little bit of time looking at this thing. And if it's worth a next step, we can talk about it. But I'm not asking you to join eXp. I'm just asking you to look at it and poke holes in it with me. So it's a really low barrier to entry. It's like, who wouldn't say, you're giving your time up, so part of it is like, you have to have that attitude also of like, I have something valuable, so you're not like coming in under them and like you're taking away from them. You have something to share with them. Just look at my notes there, and some of this stuff I don't even know if I said, because it was all a blur. My palms were sweaty, and I was like, my heart was beating weird. So just know that that's going to happen. That happened. I'm not naturally a salesperson, so that happened when I first got into real estate. I just forced myself. I'm like, okay, so if I can generate a lead and I can call these people, they're going to turn into like $10,000 commission checks potentially. I started treating every forced home search registration as a $10,000 commission check. And I'm like, I don't care what happens. Like, I'm going to get out of bed. I'm going to sneak away from the date night table, which I don't recommend anymore, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to get on the phone with these people, because it's going to help me achieve my financial goals. And this is you have something way cooler than selling them a home, So I would follow a script for sure. Build your list. Most agents never build a list. If there's something I could go back in time and do, and I probably still should do it, I would take 2 full days, sometimes I just rent an Airbnb and I just leave my family for 2 days. I would take 2 full days in the mountains and literally just start with a blank sheet and build a new list. And I bet you there's another million a year in that list. There's not as much pain for me at this point to do that. It is painful, quote unquote. But you could definitely do it if you slow down and do it. And one thing I would tell people too, from the mindset perspective, if I were to tell Lisa, so if if you had to dig ditches for the next 36 months, let's say 40 hours a week, you just pick up a shovel, you go out with the ditching crew. And you would just 40 hours a week, you would just put in your time. At the end of the 3 years, you would be compensated with in perpetuity and growing a residual income stream of $30,000 a month. Would you go dig ditches for the next 3 years? Be like, sign me up. I would make a game of it. I would we'd sing songs. I'd be the leader of the ditch diggers. Like, it would be amazing. I would love it. But it's not even like, we say this is hard work, putting an hour aside every day to connect with at least 2 people a day, 2 10-40, 2 meaningful conversations every day with another real estate agent where you at least talk about, will you look at this with me? So it's just getting really uncomfortable, and it is uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me, and it probably will be for you, but there's not a pot of gold at the end of real estate sales. I sold my interest in my real estate team at the end of 2020, and I had made a lot of money along the way, but there wasn't a 7-figure, I gave it to charity, but there wasn't a 7-figure cash exit. My ownership interest in it. And that was how many years? 2007, I got into real estate, in 2000, so 13 years. The business was worth more than 7 figures, but my interest was not. So that should tell you, after thousands of families sold, the business had no enduring value. And this asset is willable. So whatever it takes.
And that's the beauty of this, is that all of you are still selling real estate and need to continue to sell real estate to make money right now. As we saw, this is a compounding effort. There's going to be some income that come in to offset, some expenses and show you that there's opportunity here, but it's going to be like the hockey stick, because that's what the compounding effect does. But you have to have faith in the activities you do today, even if it's 2 phone calls a day, to know that after 3 years, this is really going to show up for me, and I'm going to have other options. At that time, if you don't want to stop selling real estate, by the way, you don't have to, but wouldn't it be nice if work were optional? And I think that everybody needs to have a mindset of that, because what if we can't work for a period of time? It's not always that we don't want to, but what if we can't? Right now, the only way we get paid is by showing up. There is no truly leveraged income in real estate sales, not even in real estate team sales, in my opinion, because you still have to show up a lot if you want your team to continue to perform. So I think that is just very encouraging. So I love that, bringing it back to the 2 10-40. I think, I love just bringing it to 2 calls a day. You can still sell all the real estate you want. And in fact, the more real estate you sell, the easier the 2 calls are a day, because you've got all the co-op agents that you can talk to, right? It's like your list is being created for you by selling real estate. Interesting that you said about the list. I created a list when I first joined, and I actually have been here, like I said, for about a year. There's 130 people in my organization, and it's probably going to explode pretty fast. I'm anticipating at least 200 by the end of this year, because of the compounding effort. Okay, you guys, that could be you in 2 years. It could be you in 1. It could be you in 4. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing that Lars was mentioning. I still keep that list ongoing. So I actually created it in an email to myself, because I'm in my email all the time, and it's a saved draft, and it's literally at the bottom of my email all the time. And it says top list of prospects, because every day that I'm in my email, I see that at the bottom. And almost, I would say probably 3 to 4 times a week, I click that, it pops up, and I look at my whole list, and I'm like, oh, this person joined. I should remove that person. Oh, this person's getting really close. I'm going to highlight them with a yellow highlight across their name, because it keeps it top of mind. And oh, I need to add these 10 people, because I actually had a conversation with these 10 people the last couple of weeks, and now I need to follow up with them. And this is a very simplistic, right? Not high tech by any means. I'm not high tech, if anybody knows that. All I'm doing is keeping it top of mind, so my brain is remembering to follow up, and that is reminding me, like, I'm looking for these opportunities. These things are going to come my way if I'm focusing on them. So you guys, whatever you can do, carry around a notepad with, your prospect. And when somebody doesn't show up, or you're driving to and from calls, make a call. I mean, it can be very, very simple. And even if it's 1 call a day. Does anybody have questions, comments, ahas that they want to share with Lars, or ask for some more information from Lars? And Lars, we would be really, really grateful if you were able to share the drive link if you haven't already done it. That would be amazing. There it
Yeah,
is.
it's just freerevsharetools.com. It has the top 100 template, my personal invite scripts, some rev share scripts. I think the exit strategy slides are powerful, and then there's a tracking sheet as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, you guys, unmute. Somebody's got something to say. I know you do. We have a few minutes. Even if it's an aha.
Yeah.
John, are you waving? Hey.
Yes. Hey, Lars. So I make it a point. I just started this to make my calls on Friday. Of course, I didn't make them this Friday. So this morning before this call, I made 8 calls, and I do have the nerves. I mean, we've attracted people. We were as high as 22 people in our front line, and we've lost people because they weren't producers. So I don't have the problem contacting people that I know. It's the ones that I don't know I get very nervous about. So I have a little script that I use, and I invite them to the Zoom calls on Wednesday. But if I pray that when the phone rings that I get their voicemail and not them. So it's like, so what's your, how do you get around that fear?
Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't cold called in agent attraction. So I wouldn't be the expert on like what script is going to motivate them to take the next step. I think it's literally just the next step. So though, I mean, I just haven't done it, so anyone that I called that at least knew me in some regard. I would make sure you're not cold calling in lieu of talking to agents that so some people are almost more comfortable calling strangers than agents that actually know them, and your conversions are gonna suffer. It's like calling expireds when you ignore your database. Make sure you call your database and don't ignore the better lead quality. So I wouldn't have any recommendation on cold. In general, though, when I was doing that work in my real estate business, it was attaching it. The reason I would do anything painful, the reason I work out is not because I like working out, or the reason I eat healthy, it's not because I don't love food. It's because I want to be physically fit 10 years from now, 11 years when I'm 60. So I'm always like putting the carrot out there for myself. So some people are more carrot, some are more stick. So I would just, identify what's going to motivate you to do the activities that you don't want to do consistently. The only problem I have with the Freedom Friday, which is what Brent talks about, for him, he would commit 3 hours on Friday and create enough work for the next week or so in terms of, presentations and whatnot. If you miss it, it's hard to make up. So I'm better just time blocking, 60 minutes a day where I'm going to have 2 meaningful conversations today with another agent about their real estate business. That to me is more achievable than committing to making 10 on a Friday afternoon. I think it has to be 1 or 2 that you commit to. I'm going to have a good conversation with at least 1, if not 2 agents today about, we've had people go into open houses. So your commitment could be that you're going to stop by 4 open houses every week. And that's 4 of your 10, right? If there's no buyers at the open house, you can talk to that agent and you can start to build your database that way. And if you did 4 a week, that would be 200 new agents in a year that you introduce yourself to, you brought coffee to, you brought a donut to. I mean, there are things you can do just to get in front of agents. So I don't know if that's helpful, but you have to have something that the reason you're doing it is so you don't, you're not homeless when you're retire from real estate and you have the income. Ruth.
I have a question, Lars. Sorry, was I next? Should I wait?
Ruth had her hand up. I mean, I got to give credit to that.
And then Dana, yeah.
Hi, Lars. So I had an aha and I put it in the chat, but I just had to repeat it. Thanks for permission to suck. That was big.
Yeah.
You're gonna suck at it at first, then you get better, right? So just do it. I tend to try to perfect things before I do them.
Yeah, and it always helps me to have a script. I mean, it seems like you shouldn't need a script for this, but I've never done anything in sales without a really good idea of what I was going to say. So, and then just
Yeah,
do the-
don't you think the script is more for your ease of like, if I'm panicking here because I'm so nervous that I stay on track and I stay pointed. It's not that you're reading it verbatim. And so I think that sometimes people shy away from scripts because they say, oh, it doesn't sound natural to me. I've never actually read a script, but I've always had them accessible to me so that I can pivot and say the right things at the right time if I need to, especially if I'm new or nervous. So I like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Lars, I was on your Agent Attract call and I saw that slide, how many millions you need for the monthly income. And I just finished a transaction last week, went to lunch with the co-broke immediately following the closing, started to talk about investment property because he has 5 of them. And I asked him how much he grossed, and we just kept like going down the path. And when we got into eXp, I just pulled up my phone and shared that slide with him. And I said, so how many more buildings do you need? And he's like, 20. And I went, okay, so 20 more buildings. How much money is that? And then he answered. And then by the time we got to the end, I said, well, Lars said you can either save 5 million or find 10 agents. And his eyes just opened and mouth dropped a little, sent him a couple of videos. We'll be scheduling a call with Carrie shortly. And I just wanted to thank you for that because I wouldn't have been equipped with the work.
And it is at this point in eXp, since most people have heard about it and they have an opinion about it, you do need to really just interrupt their way of thinking. Like, is it possible that you could be thinking about this the wrong way? Is it possible that, accumulating 74, single family homes or doors or whatever, could that be harder than what we're doing over here? So the fact that you even had the courage to take that approach, that's exactly a little bit of resourcefulness with like, get into all these different conversations that are happening and grab little bits and be like, man, I know I can tweak someone the wrong way in a good way by showing them that. Because I mean, that's amazing. That's a major win.
Thanks for listening to this webinar today. This is Will Penny with eXp Realty. If you have any questions about the model or agent attraction, please give me a call at 330-760-2866.